Good morning, everybody. My name is Patrick Hannon, President of World DAB, and I'm speaking to you today from North London, 29th of April. We're in the middle of the coronavirus lockdown, but I wanted to give you an update on developments related to DAB+, in particular as they relate to the automotive sector. So I've got a short presentation, which I'll run you through, and I hope this hope you're all keeping well, and hope this presentation is useful. So clearly, in the middle of the lockdown, we're in the midst of extraordinary times. European car sales in March were down over 50%, and in some countries it was even worse. Italy, about 80% down year on year. And it's a similar story in radio. Commercial radio revenues down anywhere between 40 to 80%, depending on which markets we look at. So clearly, massive short-term economic impact. What's less clear is what the long-term impact will be, but without doubt, we've got a lot of uncertainty. On a more positive note, radio actually is probably going to emerge from the crisis with its reputation enhanced. Economically, very challenging, but it has been playing a key role in the lives of European citizens. Something like 85% of Europeans listen to the radio every week. And during the crisis, radio, whether that's public service or commercial, has been providing accurate, high quality news and information. I think in particular, its role as a companion for listeners of all ages, as we've all been locked down, particularly for people on their own, radio has played a really, really important role. And then on top of that, we have dedicated COVID-19 services appearing on DAB+. And one of the features that's been particularly interesting about that is the ability of broadcasters to produce services in different languages, so that people in any particular country, it doesn't matter what language they speak, they'll be able to understand the radio. So we look at DAB+ and its progress across Europe. There's the map that many of you will be familiar with. We've got the dark blue countries, which are the established markets, really a backbone of DAB+ through the heart of Europe. And then we've got expansion both to the west and to the east. Wanted to particularly highlight the number of new trials that we have in the south and east of the continent. In particular, the most recent new trials in Bulgaria, North Macedonia, and Greece. So real continued progress right across the continent. Now, I'm not going to go through every single market, but I wanted to highlight some of the developments in in some of the largest markets. So the UK, I'm happy to say, is recording record levels of digital listening, now at 58%. In Germany, great progress. In fact, the progress has been so much that they're going to launch a second national multiplex this year. In Italy, all receivers from the beginning of this year must have DAB+, and that's both consumer and automotive. And in Switzerland, they're on track to have FM switch off by the end of 2024. So these leading countries really making very good progress. And then we've got the newer markets. In particular, in the last 18 months, we've had national launches in Belgium, Austria, and Sweden. And then in France, we've got launch a whole lot of new regional services. National DAB was expected to launch this year. I think with the virus, it's more likely to be postponed to 2021, but that will really be a massive step forward for DAB in Europe. But I'm glad to say, on top of that, it's not just a European story. So we had the launch of DAB+ in Tunisia last year, and Algeria is starting a trial later in 2020. Now, none of this success would be possible without the input of the car makers. And I just wanted to give a moment's recognition to the role that the car makers have played in building the success of DAB. We have the list of automotive members of World DAB here, and I just want to say thank you for their contribution. Now, the importance of DAB+ has been recognised by the European Union. So, and the key development was the passing of the European Electronic Communications Code in December 2018. And as many of you will know, that means that from the end of 2020, all new car radios across the EU must be able to receive digital terrestrial radio. In addition, member states are free to introduce their own legislation for consumer radios. What this means is that DAB+ will become standard in new cars across Europe, not only in the EU, but also in countries that are outside the EU. And we're talking about over 15 million cars a year. Now, if we look at that, that's 15 million across 30 countries. But if you look at the left-hand side of the table, you'll see that 90% of those sales are from only 12 countries. And in fact, 2/3 of the sales are from 4 countries. So Germany, UK, France, and Italy. Those 4 countries on their own account for 10 million new car sales a year. So if we look at the legislation, the status of the legislation in those 4 markets, I'm not going to go through all 30, you'll be glad to know. On the left-hand side, you'll see there's Italy and Germany. So Italy, as I mentioned before, from the 1st of January, all new car radios must have DAB+. So this was a law that actually preceded the European Electronic Communications Code, but it has been enacted since the beginning of this year. And then Germany, at the end of last year, passed their own law, which requires from the 21st of December 2020, all new car radios to have digital terrestrial, so absolutely aligned with the European code. So in those 2 markets, legislation is confirmed. On the right-hand side, we have the UK and France. Now, the first thing to say is that the UK, 95% of new cars already come with DAB+ as standard. So we're starting from a very high base. And the plan, although the UK has left the EU, the plan is to introduce the legislation, the European Code, and for that plan to be effective from December 2020. In France, they actually had their own law, which again, similar to Italy, preceded the European Code, and that would have meant that new cars would have been required to have DAB+ from the 1st of July 2020, so this summer. So before COVID, they were revising that law to make sure that it aligned with the European Code, and which would have meant the law kicking in at the end of December. So that's still the plan. However, it is all subject to the outcome of the COVID-19 crisis, and so it's possible that gets delayed. We'll have to see. So in terms of next steps, I think there's probably 3 key messages. Number 1, the European Commission has indicated that the date for implementation of the European Code still remains the 21st of December 2020. And that's really important. In some other directives have been postponed, but not the European Electronic Communications Code. So that's number 1. For World DAB, our role really is, first of all, to make sure that we're understanding what's going on in all the different countries. So we're monitoring the situation closely. Where appropriate and where needed, we will support member states who need clarification on specific issues. So not every market has got the same regulatory resources or the same experience. So we can share experience, we can help member states to share experience. And then I want to say that we're working very closely with our automotive partners, including ACEA, the European Automotive Association. As I said before, the car makers are absolutely critical to achieving success for DAB, and so we really want to work closely with them. Our overarching goal, as ever, remains to build a successful international DAB rollout. The key to success, as I've mentioned before many times, is collaboration across the radio ecosystem and across international borders. I'll conclude by saying thank you and keep safe. I hope this has been a useful update, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you very much.